Traumatic brain injury affects 1.8 million Americans annually. Major causes are falls, vehicle accidents, firearms, and military combat. These brain injuries range from mild to moderate to severe. In all cases, the ability to drive is often lost. The following video covers a driving rehab experiment. After a 46-year stunt driving career, Rick Seaman opened the Motion Picture Driving Clinic, where he's trained over 2,000 motion picture and television stunt performers. Rick and his staff of experts have also trained and worked with over 500 problematic teenage drivers with major success.
Once we had the school up and running, I received several calls from the wives of stuntmen who had suffered traumatic brain injuries while performing stunt work. In each case, these guys were not able to get themselves back behind the wheel of a car. So they brought them out to our facility where I put them in our cars, in our controlled driving environment. I rode with them and I just took a slow and easy approach. No pressure, no stress. Step by basic step, we went through the process. Start the motor, put it in gear, let the car drive out. We kept progressing, cone course maneuvers, handling techniques, multiple vehicle interaction and cognizance, all of those challenges, but at their pace, at their comfort level, in their comfort zone. I was not an examiner, I was their friend. And with each of them, after 4 to 5 hours, their confidence and driving talents were reconfigured. They felt good. They felt the joy again. And following these sessions, the wives reported that all of them had resumed their normal driving lives. But these drivers' brain injuries were rated at mild to moderate. None were rated as being severe. I had to keep that in mind.
Then, in December of 2013, Rick received the ultimate challenge when he was contacted by Terry Cochran from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Terry's son Chris had suffered a brain injury in a collision at the age of 17. Chris is now 34 years old, and he hasn't been back on the road since then. His TBI was rated as severe.
I knew it would not be as easy with Chris Cochran as it had been with the others. This was a very severe case of TBI. But I have a particular agenda. You see, I've been involved as a volunteer with a number of veterans and veterans organizations over the years. And I'm very close to an organization here in Los Angeles, the National Veterans Foundation. They have been heavily involved with PTSD and TBI on all fronts. So you can see where I'm heading here. I'm looking at it as a template for getting our combat veterans with TBI back behind the wheel. Okay, so here's Terry, the father. He's calling me and he's telling me about all the various attempts at driver rehab with Chris using simulators and all of these things that have not worked. So I thought about it and I said to him, hey, why don't you bring Chris out to us? I'll give Chris 3 full days with me in a real car in a safe and controlled environment with progressive techniques and response conditioning workouts. And I told Terry, I'm not going to charge you anything, not one nickel. This is going to be a test, but it's a very important test. Terry agreed, his son Chris agreed, and then I told Terry, in 1969, I suffered a traumatic brain injury when I was wounded in Vietnam. I know that world. When Chris arrived, I could see that after 17 years, he still had considerable speech and walking issues. That's when I realized that this was going to be one big challenge. So I let him choose a car from our school fleet, and of course, he liked the red car. I took him for a comfortable ride along. We talked casually, I got him relaxed. We talked about movies, stunt driving, and we talked about his accident. And we also talked about how he hoped to get back behind the wheel. I wanted him to feel relaxed, and most importantly, I wanted him to trust me.
You know, I'm really excited about what's going to take place today with Chris. I'm not a skeptical person by any means, but you know, having spent 43 years working with veterans, and many of them with traumatic brain injury, particularly these two current wars that are going on, it's the signature wound that a person with a traumatic brain injury as serious as Chris's, and the fact that he's going to drive and try to learn those skills with all the distractions that come with driving, even with a normal undamaged brain, is just mind-blowing.
In addition to having Shad Meshat out there and all of his expertise, I still felt we needed some backup. I felt we needed some more professional clinicians. Shad put a team together. Also, we were able to recruit Julie Michaels of JMP Productions to supply a camera team to shoot and document everything we were doing. And because Chris's TBI was rated as severe, I had a special plan. I wanted to start Chris out in a modified golf cart we had. Let's call it a real-time simulator. Basics: gas, brake, steering, without the intimidating roar and power of a V8 automobile engine. Peace, calm, and simplicity. Then it was time for Chris to take the driver's seat. Here again, we started with basic tasks. We did in-car familiarization, fasten seatbelt, start the motor, find forward gear, know where the brake pedal is, then driving forward, small, careful steps, baby steps, piece by piece by piece. We have to consider that Chris was injured at age 17, and he'd been driving for less than a year then. So this was a giant step for him psychologically. Was there apprehension at first? Oh yes, lots of it. I let the nervousness and the apprehension run its course. And then once I saw him gaining a sense of ease and confidence, we went to the next rung on the ladder. Hand positioning, driving posture, steering control, foot coordination. After some turning maneuvers, I noticed an instance where Chris confused a right turn with a left turn. Just momentarily, but there was confusion there. Well, that was easily fixed by setting up a slalom course where sequential right and left turns were required. After a few tentative runs, Chris started to relax and loosen up. His speed increased, and he even had the tires screeching. I could see he was beginning to have some fun. Then we expanded the run to include hard braking to a precision stop mark, kind of movie style, but very demanding. And then we continued on into a mini road course. We also added some moving vehicles to the environment. Here again, Chris was meeting the challenge with a smile on his face.
Wow! My God, can you believe what we saw?
It's amazing.
I can't believe this. I don't know if this is going to continue, but Chris laying rubber and pulling out and stopping and turning. I mean, is this real? I was like blown out. My God, I was about ready to go home before we started. What about you, Barbara?
Well, I think we expected him to be very hesitant at first, having not been in a car for over 15 years, like you said. He took off maybe a little slowly at first, but you could see his confidence build every time he went around the track, and he just did a fantastic job.
Boy, it really hits me. I mean, I I just think of the possibilities for all these war veterans that we address every day. I've never seen anything like this.
And all the other people with brain injury too.
Oh my God, I know, that's right, Barbara.
Driving is such a sign of independence.
That's right, it's, wow.
This is great.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
Okay, after that first day, I got a good feel for how we had progressed and where I wanted to go from there. One thing I noticed on the first day and the beginning of the second day, there was some situations where Chris was having problems with remembering his way back to the start mark, back to number 1, as we call it in film work. At times he would get a little lost and mixed up. There could have been a right turn to make or a left, maybe a U-turn and then another turn or another lane. Sometimes he would just get lost and he knew it. I was obviously concerned about it. So I conferred with Shad, with Barbara and the other clinicians. We talked about how we could work on that, and we did, but I was still not 100% convinced that it was corrected. We went on to work on some advanced handling techniques, some tough stuff, hard braking, steering control, the type of things we work with in our stunt driving school. Chris did quite well with these drills, but he was still having some problems with finding his way back to number 1. I had to fix that. So I decided to have a little chat, a little meeting with Chris. You feel good?
Yes.
I feel good too. Do you have any feelings that when we get finished here, you want to move on and try and get your driver's license and get back out on the road?
I'd like to do that, yes.
Yeah. So that's where the freedom is, right?
Yes.
The freedom is on the road. Keep this in mind now. Sooner or later, to do that, you're going to have to take some kind of a test or maybe multiple tests. When we go back to number 1, I want you to really show me that you can get from A to B to C to D to E without me having to say a word, okay?
Okay.
Here's why. Because when you get in a car with that instructor, the test guy, right? And he expects you to go from A to B to C to D to E, and if you go the wrong way, he's going to not be happy.
Okay.
So we got to make him happy.
Okay.
So we got a deal, right?
Okay.
Well, things got better, but not perfect. So I decided to take Chris up on the road course. It's a 3.2-mile windy uphill, downhill course. It allowed us to create the feel of the real road. It required good steering, handling, advanced braking. It was like the real thing, the real feel. We called it his Freedom Road. I brought in one of my guys to follow Chris and give him flag signals that he had to identify. This worked on Chris's mirror cognizance, focusing and feeling everything that was going on all around him. He did very well with that.
Red.
I kept him out there. We kept working. He was enjoying it. Hey, this was without a doubt his Freedom Road. We brought in more cars, multiple configurations and interactions. We had him passing slower vehicles, doing it with oncoming traffic. He did it all very well. He did a great job. But I wanted to work more with the memory issue. You know, the A to B to C to D to E. So we laid out prescribed figure 8 patterns that he was to remember and execute, regardless of what any car in front of him was doing. It worked. Things were getting much better. At that point in the program, I was noting improvements in Chris's confidence and coordination. However, I wanted more. And once again, we had a plan. Several days before Chris arrived, I met with Shad Meshad, and we called an expert TBI therapist in Seattle named Cynthia Sisk regarding the integration of rhythm therapy. She concurred that rhythm therapy was in fact a useful means for promoting new neural connections in the brain and for overcoming TBI symptoms such as short-term memory loss and impaired decision-making. And I had a go-to resource for this, my brother, Rick Seaman. He has 20 plus years experience as a drumming therapy facilitator at institutions and rehab centers all around the country. So we formed a group of participants, which included Chris and his father, Terry, and we brought them into a building there at the track, and we called it the House of Rhythm.
So many people thought the Macarena died, but I'm sorry, I'm bringing it back. Here we go, let's stop.
Okay, then day 3, first up, another drumming session. Then more driving, and then some more drumming, and then some more driving. Right hand, right side of brain, left side of brain, coordination, reconnect the wires, and most importantly, relax and enjoy it all.
And then I want you to move a little, side to side, like you're dancing. Getting too much in your brain, close your eyes. Take a breath. Yeah, that's it.
Then towards the end of the third day, I felt it was time to give Chris a really huge challenge. There's a drill we do in our teenage defensive driving class that involves quick reactions, responding to surprise flag signals. Go left, go right, stop straight, all determined by a flagger's signal. And this flagger is working to really confuse these drivers. So Chris was going to get a taste of this. And we weren't sure if he was up for this or not, because this was a major test of focus, reaction, and split-second decision-making. So he's got those two striped flags,
yes.
right? So he's going to have them down at his side, like he has them there. He's either going to give you
One.
So it's going to be left, right, or straight stop. He did a heck of a job. He hit 6 out of 7 flag signals perfectly, doing exactly what the flag indicated. And the one he missed, he knew he missed it, but he compensated immediately. So that was an extremely good batting average. But what I also realized was now he's got this tremendous increase in confidence. And when we would go back to his number 1 after each run, he was doing it perfectly. No doubt, no confusion. All by himself without me saying a word, without me coaching him or telling him where to go. So that was huge. That was major.
This has been a great 3 days here. It's remarkable. As far as what the next steps are, what the dreams are, we came out here as a step in the process of getting Chris ready to get back on the road.
Hey, Chris. I just wanted to say thank you and how much I appreciate your stellar effort that you're doing for us, because I think what you're going to be able to do is open the door for some of the new Wounded Warriors that are coming back. By being brave enough to get behind the wheel again, I think you're a hero and you're awesome. So thank you for doing that.
You like that?
Yes.
I thought you might. That's the Hollywood 180. You want to learn how to do that? Yes. I think you should. All right, I'll see you in the car. We gave Chris a much honored hat from the Stuntmen's Association, which he really appreciated. So yeah, it was a pretty good 3 days. I mean, consider where Chris was coming in and then what he left with. Very encouraging, very positive. And we have to remember, Chris's TBI was a severe case. Now, is he ready to drive on public roads? I would say, no, not yet. But if you look at the progress we made, you have to ask, how much further could we have gone in a longer program or multiple programs? I would like to see something like that become financially possible. How did I do? Well, I just do what I do. I teach people how to do things behind the wheel that they were not able to do before. Stunt drivers, inexperienced teenage drivers, and as we've seen here, people with brain injuries. Now, what about combat veterans returning home with TBI? What makes this type of program a good fit for them? That's easy. As you've seen, we bring adrenaline to the table. And combat vets, adrenaline is what makes them tick. So I look back at what we accomplished with Chris Cochran, and I can say, we did pretty good. But it's more than that for me. For me, it's the fact that Chris got to revisit the road. He got to revisit his freedom.
Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Come on.